ladies and gentlemen, in the top left of Romanticide from Alpha X, it's Zoun. And the bottom right from Team NV, it's Maru. And boy, oh boy, am I excited. This is... Of course he does. Oh, it makes me so... It just makes me unreasonably happy. The fact that Maru is doing this in game 1, tied up 1-1. Because what else would Maru do than this? Oh, it's glorious. It's going to be a proxy 2-rax here from Maru. Zoun, are you ready? Well, he's not making the mistake that Trap made in that game 7 of the semifinals that they played back in season 2 of the GSL Code S. By putting a forward-facing wall. Of course, you would never want to do that on Romanticide because it's not a map where you need to. You have a ramp leading up to your natural and third base. But man, this just makes me happy. Anytime I get to cast Maru or Bunny, it really just adds on to my day. It just makes me so happy that I have decided to do this. Because the discussion, of course, is with Maru and Bunny. You know, it's those two and Clem. They're the best 3 Terrans in the world. They are the top 3. Some would argue Maru, Bunny, the top 2 Terrans in the world, both from Team NV. And well, Maru, he's kind of had finally a sort of a return to form. Got the massive win in Azus Rog, where he just absolutely crushed through every single opponent, including Rogue, who was the one that, you know, absolutely destroyed him in their GSL finals. And so, we'll see how this proxy does. It doesn't look like Zoun is actually committing really hard to defending this. He's going to pull the probes, has a Zealot already out. It's going to be a bit sketchy here. Just a single Zealot. There's already 2 Marines out, so single probe goes down. Zoun knows that he's not going to be able to take an expansion behind this, but Maru is going to try and push the issue, focus down the shield battery. Shouldn't be able to get that as the Stalker is now out, but Maru can just contain the Protoss from this point on. You already have a factory going down for the Terran. Continued Marine production. And Maru, well, if there's anyone who's a master of transitioning out of proxy plays, it is Maru. Because Maru, for almost an entire year, proxy racks his way to 4 GSL victories. So I would not put it behind him to just know how to completely handle this. Of course, Maru does, as he should be getting ready pretty soon here to pop down a CC. It will be the starport first, just to get up those tech options, as Zoun has placed down a proxy Stargate. Maru isn't going to be able to scout it. He knows, and the reason why Maru is scouting out here is because he knows, all right, listen, the Protoss is probably doing something. I just see Stalkers at the front. There's no other information for me. Zoun has to be doing something. And so he scouts out with the SV, but does miss the Stargate, which is absolutely massive. Is going to float in the barracks, which will give him info that there is tech missing here for the Protoss. So a good move here from Maru to get a little bit more info. And he should be able to scout out the whole base with this and kind of realize, okay, you are hiding something across the map. What is it? And most likely it's the Stargate in a more... If it was... I would say if he was up against a player like, you know, an SOS, you might say, oh, maybe it's a Twilight Council and a Dark Shrine. But you can probably expect, at least, that there might be a Stargate across the map. Has Widow Mines coming out, and we'll see if he uses all of these for the drop. Has a decent amount of Marines at home. So it might just end up being that drop where it's a single Widow Mine and 6 Marines that tries to go to the back of the base and get some damage done against the Protoss. That's one I know that Maru has liked in the past as well. Does see the Oracle, and that's a pretty big catch. Being able to just know that that was indeed proxied. Has the medevac out with the Widow Mines, and well, Zoun actually gets the first Widow Mine, so a nice catch there. A really nice catch, actually. Has complete information on what Maru is trying to do. And behind this, there is also a Phoenix that has been produced, and continued Phoenix production will just completely shut down the ability for Maru to do anything across the map. Maru, as the Terran here, where you do open, where you transition at least the proxy racks into this Widow Mine drop play, it is really important for you to at least try and get some damage done, because the Protoss will have a slight tempo advantage. It's not going to be massive, but you do see Zoun has that worker lead, and that's the slight tempo advantage for Zoun. And Maru wanted to try and slow that down. He just wanted to get 2 Widow Mines across the map, because even if they didn't get damage done, they would be able to slow down the Protoss at least by a small margin. But Zoun just completely shoving everything back, is comfortably onto 2 bases, continually producing Phoenix, and going to be able to get up into the rest of his tech. We'll see. Maru. Build path has been decided. It's a proxy 2-racks, and then just transitions it straight into Widow Mine drop. And then this is the most standard follow-up from a Widow Mine drop that you can do as a Terran. It's where you're going to be adding on 2 additional racks after your factory and your starport. Switch both of those off tech labs, which you've built on them. Build reactors onto the factories and the starport. And then the barracks go on. Stim combat shields +1 on the research tab. And then continued just unit and worker production. And Maru should be looking to hit at around 7 minutes 30 seconds, I'd say, with this timing attack, if everything works out for him. Usually, without the proxy, this attack hits around 6:45. But it's going to be a little bit later just because of the proxy and the delays that Maru has had. So that Cyclone does survive. Zoun was unable to pick it off. A good pull of units from Maru, who is still just going to be gearing up for this. Behind it, what does Zoun have to defend? Because the real story is going to be when this push comes across the map, what there is for the Protoss. And you already have a Robo Bay on the way to produce Colossus. Templar Archives. No, sorry, not Templar Archives. Twilight Council. I don't know why I thought that was Templar Archives, but the Twilight Council in production and more gateways alongside the 3rd base. It does feel like Zoun is getting some very, very decent answers here for what the Protoss, or for the Terran, is going to be throwing at him. Of course, Colossus are just important, extremely important to have to defend against this push. There's going to be no concussive shell. It's very hard for the Terran, if they do push out across the map, to gain damage done. You even see Maru has decided, listen, I'm not even going to try and do the timing attack with this. I'm just going to macro behind it. There's no point for me to push across the map, because if I lose all my units, well, then Zoun just pushes across the map and kills me in return, vice versa, tit for tat. And if I don't, I can just macro up into a 3rd base, which I think is a decent option. I wouldn't say it's the best for Maru, because you're still going to be pinned back by this Phoenix, or by these Phoenix and the Oracle, which are just going to be such a nuisance to you. And even able to get some Vikings here is really massive. He's trimming down this Viking count at all this early in the game, when you know that there are going to be Colossus on the way, is very, very big. Scan comes down. Maru trying to assess what Zoun has, and well, it's not the prettiest sight you'll ever see as a Terran, but even with that being said, Maru, only 10 workers behind in this game, has his 3rd base established, has, I would say, pretty impressively just macro back up into this, but ooh, that's some great pickups from Zoun. Dives on in with the Phoenix, gets 7 worker kills, knocks Maru down to, 14 workers behind. It's just such a strong economy right now for our Protoss player. 6 more gateways go down. He's going to have +1. The 3rd Colossus on the way, and full information with these revelations, with the Oracle. Zoun, I think, is just playing this transition fairly masterfully, knowing what units he needs to get into. Here we go. 4th base coming on the way. Ghosts already in production for Maru. This game, this is just game 1. I almost thought this was game 2 for a second, just because we started off with the proxy, and I was like, oh, a proxy racks. This game's gonna go very quickly. No, it's Maru. Even if he does a proxy racks, that doesn't mean the game is gonna go quickly. He's so capable of just transitioning it out into a regular game. It is sometimes quite crazy to behold. But a 4th CC is going to be on the way. Continued Ghost production is taking up most of the money here for Maru. Ghosts, they're not cheap. They are pretty expensive. 150 minerals, I think 125 gas, so I'm not wrong. I play Terran, I should know, but I don't. And that is a sin that I have committed. But Maru also is not able to get up into his 2-2. Hasn't even started his +1 armor yet at this point. Is still waiting on the armory. And I mean, still just hasn't started +1 armor, which is pretty big. You want that upgrade, especially against charge lots, especially against Colossus. It allows your Marauders to be a lot more tanky. It allows your Marines, especially against charge lots and Stalkers more specifically, to just fight better. Against Colossus, they're not going to do too much, though, as, well, this is a pretty big Viking flock. I don't think there's a lot that's going to be getting out from there, as 2 of the Phoenix do go down, and that's going to limit Zoun's ability to really harass anymore. But enough of the game has passed that Zoun is pretty happy, because with just that Oracle and those Phoenix, he was able to keep Maru back in his base. He was able to get up into a 4-base economy with 77 workers. And he's already working on Blink +2. He has Disruptors added into this army. It's such... I mean, this army for Zoun is just so technical. It's Colossus, Disruptors, Immortals, Phoenix, and Archons. It is such an expensive army to replace, but also, it's just so hard to fight this if you're Maru. Now, he does have the Vikings for the Colossus and the Phoenix, and there's no real way that Zoun can contest that. He doesn't have quite enough Stalkers on the ground to really deal with it, and the Ghosts, of course, will eliminate the Archons. But then you still have the Disruptors, and that is what really adds the danger to this army, is Zoun, he's just posturing around the map. He's trying to look for an opening, because he knows that if Maru missteps at all, he can absolutely pounce on it. As the Observer shows, double Liberator production already began. You have 9 Vikings on the field. Maru, evidently pretty happy with that number, is now just getting into Liberators. Those will be able, and Liberators, those are the units that will be able to zone out the Disruptors. They are what allows the Terran to push into Disruptors, is the Liberators and the tanks working together. But that being said, Maru still hasn't been able to take a 4th base. It's Fusion Core on the way to get Liberator range, and you have 2+2+1 on the way for our Terran, but Zoun, he's already working on his +3 weapons and +2 armor. With a 2nd Stargate on the way. Going to start to transition this into the later game tech. And as crazy as it is, we have somehow managed to go from Maru opening this game with a proxy to Irax to now looking like we're going to enter into just a supreme late game TVP, as Maru was looking to bring out a small group of units there to the right side of the map. Zoun scouts it out, luckily enough, and so Maru splits it up. He's just going to try and see what he can do. And hey, Sniping Phoenix is actually pretty nice here with these Marines. Just getting any damage that you can. As, oh my, those death screams are so loud. WTL has a thing, and it is loud death screams. As Liberator range on the way, +2 ship weapons. And a Ghost cloaking field. Personal cloaking. As Maru now himself onto 4 bases as Zoun takes his 5th. The small group of units that Maru split off is going to stim back on in, deny the 6th from his opponent, and now see if he can stim on into the 3rd. And, well, Dark Templars are warped in, but a great scan. I don't think Zoun's going to be able to do too much here. Maru just looks to focus down some workers. Oh, even snipes a Disruptor. And hey, anything that you can do to slow, to limit the Disruptor count of your opponent at this point in the game is massive for Maru. But behind it, I mean, just look at Zoun's bank. You know, approaching 3K minerals, almost 1K gas, tectonic destabilizers is being researched. He has already made his way into the fleet beacon. And he's getting into tier 3 units here for Zoun. He's looking to transition this into the supreme late game. As here we go, drop coming through from Maru. 3 medevacs all loaded up. Zoun's immediately going to try and pull on back, but we should just see Maru. I mean, he might even be able to focus down the Nexus here. I don't know if there's too much that Zoun can do to try and stop it, as some great EMPs go down. Snipes 2 of the Archons as, oh, gotta be careful. Medevac full goes down. As DTs blink on in, 12 workers go down from them. Oh, Maru managed to catch a few more out before they eventually blink away. And nukes. Didn't even see it, but we have nukes on the map. as there's going to start to be action all over the place, because now we are getting into the stage of the game where it is tier 3 units. It is the Tempests on the map for Zoun with Tectonic Destabilizers. They'll be able to eliminate missile turrets. They'll be able to outrange Vikings and just burst down planetary fortresses once you get to a large enough number. And Maru, I mean, I would love to even see him add on more nukes, but of course the investment of gas at the current moment to do so would be just a bit too much. He's already working on his +3/+2 for his infantry, +3 ship weapons. Will finally catch him up to Zoun, who has +1 ship weapons himself, +3/+2 with +3 and shields on the way. It's a whole bunch of numbers. It's so many numbers. Ah! Numbers all over the place. But we're 16 minutes on into this TVP. And it's really not looking like any side has any inclination that they want to try and push out anytime soon. Maru gonna stem on in here. Does manage to get a shield battery overcharge out. And there's the Tempest Blasts. Big balls of energy just flying to Maru's face. And he says, ah, there are Tempests. Is now alerted to, of course, the presence of these units. Another nuke gonna go down across the map. Zoun should be able to spot this out and does pull back. Of course, this gets rid of shield batteries. It's going to get rid of cannons. And that is really what you're looking for these nukes to do, is to clear up this static defense. As Maru's just building on and adding on more command centers. He's getting ship plating here for his Liberators and his Vikings, because these are what is going to allow him to fight this army here from Zoun, is the Liberators and the Vikings. They give him the ability to push. They give him the ability to defend. They stop. You know, they are the counters to what Zoun has, so he needs them to survive. If not, of course, this Protoss army, it is pricey, it is expensive, and it will absolutely roll you over if you're not ready. Oh, here we go. Maru unleashes a volley and gets, I mean, a lot of those Tempests extremely low. Of course, doesn't necessarily need to focus fire. Of course, would like to, just in order to eliminate Tempests at a time, but has enough Vikings that an attack move will spread out their fire evenly enough that they should hit everything. But Zoun behind this, +2 shields, +2 ship weapons. Even working on, what is it? What's the name of the upgrade? I'm completely forgetting, like Pulse Veins or whatever. The Void Ray Speed upgrade is on the way. So the upgrade that you almost never see researched. Flux Veins, that's it, I remembered. But right now you're sitting at a 5 base Protoss, and Maru has actually taken a 6th base behind this. Started to build up a bit of a gas bank, and is finally maxing out with +3/+3 for his infantry. Getting plating, of course, for his buildings. Even more just units being added on as Zoun's committing to this. This is a real dangerous place to just try and fight into, as here come the Viking swarm. So many Vikings. I mean, just Ghosts just absolutely pelting everything. Maru, he's just rolling through the army. Finally, storms come down, and they do so much damage as the screams of death just fill your ears. But the Vikings win the fight in the air. The Colossus almost all go down. The Tempests are all eliminated. And Zoun now has to rebuild, but has, I mean, plenty of bank to do it with. And I still find it funny how that fight just devolved into just screams everywhere. Ghosts are already loud. Like, even when you have your voices set at low volume, Ghosts are already the loudest unit. But this really takes it to another level as these DTs losing quite a few of them, and that's quite the gas investment for Zoun, especially when he ends up losing them. Hasn't rebuilt any of the air tech, is respecting the fact that Maru controls the skies with those 11 Vikings and 9 Liberators. And Zoun is going to be starting to add on his own 6th base, but still... Oh, sorry, his 7th base. They were 6th base for his 6th base. I actually miscounted. I believe the 3rd and the 4th. Sorry about that. We are back from the buffering. My Wi-Fi temporarily died, but luckily, the power of editing And we are right back on into the action with no trouble at all. Plus, is that +3 ship weapons on the way for these carriers that are being produced? That is. Zoun. I mean, he has a decent ground army that he has produced here. Of course, there's no way for him to push. There's so many Liberators, there's so many Vikings. But he is producing carriers, which can fight straight up a little bit better than the Tempests. Big problem with Tempests, if you get on top of them, they are squishy, they are weak, they're like cheese. Like a nice slice of cheese is when you put some heat on them, you know, you get a little bit of fire on them, they just melt. Carriers are not quite that. They're like the bread, you know? They're just real hardy, they got a lot of HP, it takes a bit to get through them. And so Zoun is going to be transitioning into that as he has +3 weapons for these carriers. Maru stimming on in, going to be trying to take down this base that was just established, and, well, eliminating a lot of this static defense is, of course, the first start. There we go, snipes the base. Is going to lose quite a few units, but you also have a nuke that's been snuck in with the cloak. Maru, it's not going to get too much damage done unless probes aren't pulled, just because there's no static defense there to eliminate. Oh, 14 workers. Yep, that's... No workers were pulled. And that's where these nukes can start to get damage, is when Zoun is just across the map trying to micro on multiple sides, had to deal with a Liberator at the same time. And Maru even could have put that nuke closer. I think he expected a cannon to be there, and there just wasn't a cannon. So, doesn't end up getting as much damage as he could have gotten, but still evens out this worker count. You're now seeing both workers sitting 64 to 68. You have, I mean, Zoun working on his upgrades. +3 shields on the way. 10 carriers. I mean, it's 10 carriers. It's also 24 Vikings for Maru, who has just absolutely not been slowing down on this, these air units that he's been producing. And it is a formidable army here from Maru. The 7th base is going to be taken down. He's not going to be able to establish it as these disruptor shots looking to clear up a few widow mines. 13 workers went down at that base. But both players starting to build up a decent bank. Zoun has completely, I think, reset his bank that he did end up losing from that last engagement. Is now, I mean, completely back into a very, very good spot. Just sitting 11 ghosts here for Maru. Continuing, I mean, just still 25 Vikings. If Maru's ever able to dive on top of these carriers, there's no way that they can all survive. The Vikings will just absolutely shred through them. There are storms, though, available. It is only 3 High Templar, though, which makes you a little bit worried as you see the Vikings here over a wall. A lot of ghosts go down, though, with that shot. Disruptors proving valuable, but still, I think Zoun ends up losing a few more higher tech units. And the big thing that you're looking at this point in the game, it's not bases, it's not workers. You don't really care about those things. And army count until you get a decisive game-deciding fight. What you're looking at is the gas bank for rebuilding, because these armies are so technical. They just require so much gas inside of them that if you lose all of it, are you able to rebuild? We'll see. Maru is going to be nuking down the cannons here, and there's not much that Zoun can do to save it. Actually, might even lose the disruptor. Nope, pulls out just in time. But cannons are eliminated, and Maru's continuing to push in this this crazy game. It's a 24-minute game. This started out with 2 proxy racks as Zoun, he's just jumping on in, loses so much to the Liberator shots. Carrier count is down to 6. Disruptor balls being thrown out, but they're just not able to get anything done. The Liberator range proving so useful here for Maru to push. He's attacking 2 bases at once, just hemorrhaging this position. I think that's even, missile turrets that have been built for Maru to fall back to in case he does end up losing this position. Another nuke gonna go down. Not quite a scan anywhere. Does Zoun actually see it? I don't see those probes being pulled away. Zoun might just lose a lot here to this nuke, and that would be absolutely massive. It's coming down. 18 workers die. The Nexus can be focused down. Zoun taking some incredible losses. Maru pushing the issue. Storms do manage to get rid of quite a few Vikings. But still, 22 Vikings in the sky. It's 12 carriers, though. Jones, he's going to try and push it. Here we go. EMPs go down all over the Protoss army. The storms shred through everything. There's just so many interceptors. I don't know if Maru has enough. All of those Vikings are red health. 9 carriers left. Zoun looking to do it. Here we go. Interceptors diving on in. So many Vikings just get shredded. The nuke coming down. Observers are here, though. And Maru, his position is going to get cleaned up. 6 carriers, though. A lot go down. 2 of those missile turrets and a lot of interceptors need to be rebuilt. But Zoun, he has a bank. Maru only up 10 supply. Repairing the Vikings, making sure they're at full health. This position, a bit difficult to push just because of the planetary fortresses. And Maru's rebuilding the Viking count back up to 15 already. The 7th base once again going to be killed off. But Maru takes the supply lead. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of gas to work with here for Zoun. He's, it's only got 300 gas. Oh, that EMP was so juicy. Gets rid of all of the energy on the High Templar, and that was the real threat to Maru's army, was the storms. Zoun doesn't really have the money to rebuild the High Templar. I mean, those were his anti-air. That was the AoE for the air and the ground army, was those storms. But Maru has repaired the Viking army back up to a formidable count, producing 4 at a time. I mean, both players now running out of places to mine from. This camera is very zoomed in. Here we go. Vikings diving on in. Stalkers doubling forward, and quite a few Vikings go down, but he just snipes away 3 carriers. And those carriers, I mean, you just can't afford to lose that many. Go Zoun. I mean, wants to try and push in, but just can't. There's just so much here for Maru. Another carrier is going to go down. Vikings, some great focus fire. Managing to snipe off the last remaining 3. Zoun loses all of his carriers. Oh, the disruptor shots! So close to getting 2 great ones. The first disruptor is killed. The second one dodged. It's still a strong ground army here for Zoun. He's going to try and make it work with just these few units. But it's such a hard ask. I mean, he needs some incredible disruptor shots. He needs to get on top of the army, and then he still needs to break down all of these planetary fortresses. Maru's forcing the engagement. Maru just dives on top of the army, sieges up the Liberators. All of the Stalkers go down. Maru kites back from the disruptor shots. The planetary fortress will die, but that is all of the army cleaned up. GG! Maru takes game number 1. No team. They both got dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, the top right from Alpha X, it's Zoun. And he's not the red Terran. He is the blue Protoss, actually. And the bottom left from Team Envy, it's Maru. So, don't be fooled by the scoreboard. Both these players do, in fact, have a team, and they are not playing each other's races. But we're on to Oxide, which is one of the lovely maps that has a winter edition. If you guys do not know, with WTL, we get these wonderful winter maps for the winter season. One of them is Oxide. It's cool. It is at times a bit garish. I will say that. It definitely does throw you off looking at this, opposed to the regular Oxide map. But the other really cool thing about WTL this season is, of course, that we have Frost. Frost is in the map pool. I don't know if we're going to see it this time. I doubt that I don't think it was on the map picks or on the map pool. Because, of course, in these best of 2s, the first map is set and then the loser picks the second map. So, Zoun ended up choosing Oxide. And it could very well be that we have actually Oxide as the 3rd set. You can have those map repeats because of how the format is. But Frost is in the map pool. It's really cool. I miss Frost. It's such a cool map. I miss 4-player maps in general. Of course, there's a reason why they were kind of phased out of the competitive map pool. And it's just because, listen, 4-player maps, there's too much RNG with the builds and how they interact with the spawns that it's really hard for players to prepare, especially at the highest level, and it does just become more annoying than anything to have to play a 4-player map. So, we are seeing them start to kind of be introduced back in, though. And that's what I really do like, is we had a while where all the maps started to be standardized. Sorry, I just almost had a heart attack there as the buffering started. All the maps started to be standardized, and you were two-player maps. They had a very specific layout. Sometimes you'd see something different. You eventually started to see some creativity with the two-spawn map. We started to see a lot of maps that threw in some interesting things, inhibitor zones, speed zones, interesting like mineral walls. All those things started to be experimented with because you only had two-player maps. And then GSL came through and they're like, actually, we're gonna have a GSL specific 4-player map because we want one. And I think that's really cool. I'm really glad that they did that. Because again, I do enjoy 4-player maps and how players decide to end up doing builds on them. Of course, you know, sometimes you do just end up seeing hour-long games, but hey, you know, we don't get enough hour-long games. We don't get enough of them. And also surprisingly, unlike what we saw in game number 1, there has been no cheese. There has been no player going for early proxies or anything like that. In fact, it is completely standard. I mean, it's literally almost as completely standard as you get. Oh, Zoun. Oh, I love it. Resonating glaives on the way. This is going to be interesting. Now, resonating glaives, usually an upgrade that you'll get because you're going to be aggressive, especially in TVP. You're not going the kind of strange, oh, I'm going to get 3 gateways, resonating glaives, push across the map against my Zerg opponent, and maybe I get damage, maybe I don't. No, you're going all in. And so we're going to have a pretty short game 2 here. We'll see how Maru holds it, but Zoun looking to tie up the scoreline for Team NV. And we'll see if Maru's ready for it. I mean, the Resonating Glaives, it's not something that you see. It's not an upgrade that you see. This isn't an all-in. That happens a lot just because a lot of players, if they do scout it, are able to defend it well. But Maru might just be unsuspecting. Robo Facility on the way for Zoun, but it is in fact all reliant on these Adepts and how much damage they're going to do. 3 Adepts warped in at home. They're going to be able to pretty much shove back these Marines, but Maru stimming in, or not stimming in, but just walking on in, is joining in with 3 medevacs. Maru just walking across the map and saying, how much damage can I get done? That's a massive shot. 12 workers go down. Maru's losing 9 across the map as the Glaive Adepts have gone on into the natural, and they're going to be able to shut down that engineering bay. But it is almost a base race here for these 2 players. As Zoun and Maru going at it, 14 probes go down. Another great Widowmine shot. Maru trying to ferry these units as much as he can. As here we go, Marines being popped out, but still Glaive Adepts on into this main base, and 16 workers go down for the Protoss. Maru, he's managed to limit the amount of losses he's taken, but it is still taking so much damage. 5 more workers go down. Zoun, a tank finally pops out, but he might be able to focus down the supply depot, and if he can get on into the main. No, leaves it. The repair might just come through. The supply depot goes down. Zoun diving on top of the supply depot. He can now try and shade on in, but the supply depot has been rebuilt. A Banshee will get rid of the Adepts. And at the end of the carnage, it is 29 workers to 35 in favor of our Protoss player. And a 3rd base on the way for Zoun with Blink Stalkers going to be in production. That Blink upgrade about a 4th of the way done. Maru, I mean, I would say, I don't even know if we took the bigger losses there. It was such an even trade, but Maru ended up losing all the units that he had across the map. Zoun did not. Now it's a Templar Archives on the way for Zoun. Just transition this as, I mean, almost seamlessly into what is going to appear to be a macro game. Maru working on stim, and his +1 has finally got that engineering bay finished. And despite how just absolutely insane and crazy that just moment was, we are now somehow sitting at almost a completely even game. And this Banshee looking to try and get damage done, but it's just being traced there by the Observer and the Stalkers. Storm on the way. Blink gonna finish up here for Zoun. As the Protoss player, you gotta feel pretty comfortable here. Sitting at 48 workers, that's 2 full bases saturated. And with a third on the way. And finished, actually. Maru gonna try and slit something in here at the top of the map. I'll have to get a shot on it. Might be a Widow Mine drop. Oh, it was Raven. All right, Raven drops down. 5 workers killed. Decent enough for that. Again, anything to slow down the Protoss at this point in the game is good for Maru, because he's gearing up for what appears to be a pretty potent attack. Again, I'd say doesn't have a third base on the way. In fact, it's just more Marauder production. I think Maru right now sitting on 3 tech labs and a reactor. So many Marauders in production. Concussive shell on the way. I think Maru's gearing up for an attack here. 8 workers go down. Again, I'd love to see what it was. Was that? Oh, a storm drop. That's absolutely sick. 8 workers go down. Maru, he's committing. It's 2 base right now. He has Stim. He has +1. Combat Shield and Concussive Shell will be finishing up very, very shortly. And it's 3 medevacs going across the map. Maru, at the same time, I'd love to see him maybe even load up more medevacs, send another just small group of units across the map, try and set this up to be double-pronged, but no, he's going to go for it. Here we go. This looks like it's going to be straight on into the third. I mean, a Templar's there. It's not going to do too much as here comes the drop. Widow Mines burrowing on in. And Maru looking to get some damage done. 7 workers already going down. The storms just come through, though. Absolutely shred that bio. Maru gets 8 workers. And in return, manages to get out with a good chunk of his units. More medevacs joining up, though. Maru looks like he wants to go for take 2. So many workers have been lost this game. Almost 60 workers for both these players combined. And you even see Zoun threatening there with the Templar. Shut down that drop as... Ooh, I don't know if you can quite push this. Concussive Shell is done. And that means the chase potential here for the Terran is much, much higher. 2 tanks have joined in. Maru's ferried over the rest of his units, in fact. Maru thinks he can push this position, and I think he can. I mean, there's not really... High Templar haven't been rebuilt here for Zoun, so he doesn't have storms available. And here we go. Protoss going to try and commit on in. Medevacs have to boost on out. A great burrow there onto the Widow Mine. Both of them getting some pretty nice hits. But Maru has to pull on out. Third base has only just now been started for Maru. He's still only on 2 bases. Ghost Academy's on the way, but these Zealots will just be able to cancel this. I don't think there's any way for Maru to finish that third base, and this is massive because Zoun, he's sitting on 62 workers. He's sitting on a 3-base economy. Pretty soon, he'll have the +1 of his own to match that of Maru. Oh my, ships passing in the night right now. Oh, but Maru is going to run into the main brunt of Zoun's army. He's going to have to boost on out. And again, I wish we could get a shot of it because it's happening on the right side of the map, but we can't. As the recall goes down, medevacs are going to be able to just sit here and wait. And I do like this from Maru. Unfortunately, is in view of the Observer. As Maru continuing to press across the map. Maru is just floating over his main base. He says, listen, that main is not really too important for me. I can absolutely afford to just float my main base over, take the third where there's going to be more minerals and more resources for me to take. And I think he's absolutely correct because right now, Maru, he's behind. Zoun has taken a 10, I mean, it's only a 10 supply lead. It's not that big at all. But almost sitting at a 20 worker lead right now at, I mean, a decently healthy 17. Ghosts are being added on for Maru. Still has those tanks. Ooh! Ah, I was in the middle of a yawn. But Maru snipes the Warp Prism. Need to take more breaths so that doesn't happen. I'm very sorry. That was a really good snipe, though. I think he even got a High Templar inside of it. Forced out a storm. Managed to get out with a good chunk of the units. But this is a ground pound army from Zoun. Maru's actually built a few Vikings, and those aren't very useful at all. because Zoun right now is sitting on 20 charge lots, 6 Archons, 8 Stalkers, 5 Adepts, 5 High Templar. It is all in the ground, baby, for Zoun. And Maru, what do you have? Well, 3 tanks, a lot of Marauders, and these Ghosts. And the EMPs are the most important part of this fight. If Maru can land his EMPs, he can absolutely dismantle this entire Protoss army. But Zoun, oh, he's setting up what could be just an absolutely killer surround here. He's just going to wait out for the Zealots. They've already been shift queued up. Oh, no, they're going for a run by. Maru's going to be able to see the Zealots. Maru now knows that Zoun has a large amount of his army across the map. He's setting up tanks. He's going to look for these EMPs. He manages to get them. Force field or not, Maru's just going to push on through. He says, listen, I can take this much of your army. SCVs are pulled to fight the Zealots. Maru's going to lose so much at home, and he's going to have to try and make this work. More Zealots coming on through. I mean, Zoun, he's just trying to end the game. Maru, though, across the map, lands some great EMPs, splits his units. There's already a Colossus out, but 2 Vikings going to try and just chunk down that Colossus. That's a huge storm. 2 of them down on Maru's army. And Maru's supply plummets. Zoun just coming on in, trying to roll it over. And that's going to be the game. 41 workers die at home. The Zealots do their job. And I don't think there's any way that Maru's going to be able to come back from this. An absolutely brutal game. And Zoun, what a performance from him. He's going to be able to tie up this series. So well done. As a storm attempted, Maru, he's going to see what he can do with this small group. It's some great EMPs, but even all the stutter step micro in the world is not going to save Maru. As Zoun just collapsing. Structure shot is dodged. GG, Zoun ties it up 1-1. And what a sick set of 2 games that was.